Hey, we're back. This is the 1P versus 2P podcast, gaming news, culture, and history. As always, I'm your host, Taylor Ray, with my brother, Ryan Ray. Hey, Ryan, long time no speak.
Hey, how's it going?
Very good. A couple of housekeeping items before we get into the meat of this show, which will be all about our E3 2017 previews and predictions. A couple of housekeeping items. Number one, you might have noticed that it's been a while since our last episode, so we're sort of switching to a semi-regular schedule, given our day jobs, things going on in our life. It's hard to maintain that weekly schedule, so want to apologize for those of you who are regular subscribers. Thank you, as always, for listening to our show. We really appreciate your feedback and listening. We want to say that we're going to be shortening our schedule a bit. So it'll be about 2 to 3 episodes per month, not per week. So it'll be sort of a staggered schedule. We appreciate you all. Just know that we're still out here. We're still producing this show, and we very much look forward to continue to do this. All right. I just want to remind everyone, if you don't already follow us on Facebook or Twitter, make sure that you follow us also on Twitch and even Mixer as well, because we're starting to do some gameplay streams. I've already done a couple, actually several, over the past several weeks, including streams of Heroes of the Storm and Overwatch and a great new point-and-click adventure game I've been playing recently. So if you haven't been watching those, either follow us on Facebook. I'm also streaming to Twitter and Periscope, YouTube, Twitch. Just search for us, the 1P versus 2P podcast. Ryan's going to start getting into this soon, hopefully. Just got to get that good old green screen equipment.
Right. And we thought since we were going to be doing less of the audio podcast, we'd be doing more video and more streams. Come to think of it, a video game podcast, we should actually play some video games on it, right? So.
Right, yeah. It just seems like natural evolution, of course. And also, last but not least, I just want to remind all you folks out there, if you can support our show by buying t-shirts or other gaming merch available at our store. The URL is tinyurl.com/1pvs2p. We've got t-shirts, hoodies, mugs, posters, phone cases, and more. These are all gaming-related designs that I've created myself. Very much appreciated if you could check that out, see something that you like, order something, and those items directly support our show, our hosting costs, our website. Very much appreciate if you could check those out. I should also mention that you get a 10% off discount with that URL. So get automatically anything that you order 10% off by going to tinyurl.com/1pvs2p, or just click at the link at our own website, 1pvs2p.com. All right, let's get into E3 2017. We're going to go through some of the major conferences, including ones from EA, Xbox, Bethesda, the PC gaming show, Ubisoft, PlayStation, and Nintendo. But we're also going to cover some of our predictions, our wish list items. And since we're recording this on Saturday, June 10th, we're actually recording this after the EA one just happened, which we both reviewed. Ryan, want to take it away, what we just saw?
Right. So EA's conference, very tight, I would say. Very good conference from EA. They started off with sports. They showed off Madden 18, FIFA 18, and NBA Live 18, which all interestingly this year, they're taking this tact on including story modes in this year's sports games. Madden's is called Long Shot. Basically looks like a very dramatic, good old sports movie. Remember the Titans, that kind of thing, as you direct a player through his sports career in football as he tries to sign deals, tries to get signed onto a team,
right,
positions, so on and so forth, develop him. FIFA 18, FIFA last year actually also had a single player story mode. They're bringing back that protagonist. I don't remember his name. I think his name is something like Jordan. But anyway, now he's on a more international stage this time for the 2018 game. And NBA Live 18, NBA Live has kind of had its lunch eaten by NBA 2K, the more popular basketball franchise. NBA Live the past few years has been canceled. All the players have been stuck in T-pose. And
yeah.
Now they're saying they're rolling out this footage. It looks okay, but what's interesting about their single player story mode is that it looks like they're going to make it a little bit of an RPG where, as your basketball player, gets signed onto teams and develops, he's also going to be playing like some street basketball, maybe some NBA Jam or street arcade style basketball. And then, let's say he plays a game of horse, he might, get better at 2-point shooters from
and
outside
improve
the
his
paint.
stats. It seems like, that's what was shown off so far about NBA Live 18, which is, you're right. It's notable because it's been a hiatus. I want to say the last one might have been, I don't know, is it 10, somewhere around there, 2013?
It was when this new generation of consoles came out. I believe NBA Live 15 might have been like a launch game for the PS4 and Xbox One, but that game just totally tanked from day one because of all the technical issues and getting online, and that development team had a really bad start. So hopefully they get it together. The sports games for EA sell very, very well. There are people who buy them every single year. And that kind of audience I'm not sure is really looking for all these added features. They just want basically updated rosters. But for the rest of us, we're looking for all this extra stuff to get in here. The rest of us who aren't exactly as technically minded or are interested in, kicking a ball across a pitch or throwing across the 20-yard line. So
clearly we play these games often, don't we? We sound like it.
Hopefully they'll have something for the rest of us. But the next game that they showed definitely is something I'm interested in after I've been checked out of this franchise for a while. Need for Speed Payback, which looks a lot like a cross between the Burnout franchise games and the Forza Horizon games that Microsoft has been putting out. Basically, Need for Speed Fast and the Furious. They might as well have just said that, right?
Yeah, it looked really, really slick. They showed, I think it was like a Ford, I think it was a Mustang racing through these big mountains in LA. It looked very, very slick. But yeah, it's sort of combining that, the more, I would say, like stunt style and car combat, not like Twisted Metal, but like you said, like a Burnout style, where you're shunting other cars, you're sideswiping them, those kinds of things, crashing. It looks admittedly really, really nice, which is a nice change, because the last Need for Speed, which was a bit of a reboot that had FMV stuff, was a little disappointing, I have to say. But and then next they showed off some Battlefield 1 stuff, some new announcements. It's mostly just new content. 8 new maps in total, keeps growing and growing here. In September this year, a new DLC pack in the name of SAR. It's focusing on, get this, women characters called the Women's Battalion of Death. So that's really, really interesting. I believe a first in the series, showing off women involved in World War I. So very, very interesting stuff that they're showing off. So something to look forward there if you are still playing Battlefield 1.
Yeah, I wonder how big that multiplayer community still is. That game, when it came out, I think was very, very popular. It totally took the last Call of Duty game out of the picture, but I can't imagine that in the wake of all these multiplayer shooters that came out right around that same time, that people are still playing Battlefield 1.
Yeah, we had a good run with it for several months. Really entertaining. I think it made both of our top 10 Game of the Year lists. Yeah, not much keeping me back, but of course there's still a huge audience for this. So I'm sure that multiplayer community is still very, very popular still. Next is a brand new game called A Way Out from the makers of Brothers, if you remember that indie hit from several years ago. This is a game that they described as a cooperative Prison Break.
Yeah, it looked really, really cool. They described it as a game designed only for co-op play. Of course, online multiplayer, but also it seemed to emphasize couch co-op, local split screen. You're basically playing as 2 prisoners trying to break out of this prison. One is a veteran prisoner is kind of an odd concept, a veteran inmate, and a more fresh baby-faced one. As you follow their story, they try to escape. They kind of get into the wilderness and meet some new characters, and I'm sure they have a heartbreaking bond or whatever. But from the makers of Brothers, Brothers for me was a very deeply affecting game. They had a little bit of wonkiness with the controls there, but I thought that game was very deep, rich, emotional, short bite-sized thing. And if A Way Out looks incredible. Prison Break is a great concept for a game, and to have that, to bring back the kind of like Portal 2 style puzzle solving with a little bit better storytelling, I would definitely be very interested in that.
Well, Portal 2, I think, is a weird analogy. I would say it reminds me a lot of the Prison Break sequence, spoiler alert, but this happens at the beginning of Uncharted 4, A Thief's End. I want to emphasize and clarify something that you said earlier, which was that it's split-screen co-op, and this applies to both online and local play, so you're always going to be in split-screen. But what's interesting about the gameplay footage that they showed off was that you could have one character who's playing as the one inmate that's encountering like a cinematic where they're unable to control the character, whereas in the other panel of the split screen that you can control the other character involved and watching this cinematic sort of unfold, which I think is kind of a novel concept here. And I saw a lot of comments on the stream that people were saying, "Oh, this looks like Kane and Lynch." So it's cribbing a little bit from that, but it seems interesting. Like there's some stealth mechanics here. I saw one person hiding like in a laundry cart and the other one pushing it. So one player would be able to control. The second was sort of looking at a cinematic. It looked really neat. Eager to hear more about that. But that was a reveal for a brand new IP that they're releasing out, A Way Out. Interesting style. Next, speaking of new IPs, this was a very short teaser trailer of a new one from BioWare called Anthem.
Right. So the teaser, all they really showed was some mech suits, some characters in some exosuit armor, some guns. I have no idea if this is going to be an RPG or a third-person shooter. It seems to be kind of taking a little bit of the tropes of the Titanfall series, which EA also
looked a little
owns.
bit like that.
Yeah, it reminded me a lot of Titanfall, and just the I believe it was like a 2-minute trailer or whatever. We're gonna see a little bit more of that game at the Xbox presentation. I'm a little curious where BioWare is gonna go with this. BioWare, as you know, has been doing a lot of Mass Effect lately, and not Mass Effect well. Mass Effect Andromeda failed to set anybody's hearts on fire. And, coming off of that, BioWare is kind of in a weird spot. So hopefully they can get back their footing with this Anthem game. I don't know much about it. Hopefully the gameplay is good.
Yeah, it's definitely hard to talk about it given that it was like a really short teaser trailer, but anxious to see more about that. You can expect a lot of things from BioWare, for sure. All right. And last but not least, Star Wars Battlefront 2. A lot of stuff was shown off about that. Some really, really great stuff I'm very excited about. So there's some deeper progression. They're promising more customization. They have a brand new class system, so you can play not only as, let's say, some of the clone troopers, but you can play as Wookiees, but you can play between like heavies or specialist snipers, things like that. It takes place across all eras of the Star Wars universe. So there's prequels, there's classics, there's new stuff, but also a brand new single-player story mode, which I thought was missing from Star Wars Battlefront 1. That was one of the major complaints about that there was only a multiplayer online component, which I think is a great new add. You're supposed to be playing an Imperial storyline, I believe, with like a TIE fighter captain. And it sort of bridges the story between Star Wars Return of the Jedi and A Force Awakens. So sort of unexplained history that we have right there, which is really, really interesting and very exciting. I want to hear more about that. But yeah, basically, Battlefront 2 looks like it's updated across everything, including like upgraded weapons. And get this, no season pass. It's a huge welcome for me. There's going to be theme-free seasons of content at no extra cost. So I think that's a great, great thing that they're doing. Hopefully it brings in a lot of existing and new Battlefront fans to this one.
Yeah, EA really emphasized here that they heard a lot of the feedback from the first Battlefront, the no single-player story, the very shallow progression, some of the hero stuff not being as nice as it could have been, scope of the multiplayer battles not as big as they wanted. They premiered actually Assault on Theed. Theed is a planet from the Phantom Menace. It's going to be 20 versus 20 battle mode. They showed off a new kind of AT-RT, which is like this rideable droid. It's what if horses, but instead Star Wars? It seems really, for what it's worth, the multiplayer seems very cool. They, with the customization stuff, they're doing that card pack stuff again. You can, if you pre-order, you get the Yoda epic lightsaber whatchamajig, and who knows. But, EA being EA, it's good to hear them say that they are going to be not try to divide the user base between season pass owners and non-season pass holders. They're going to do free seasons of content, add in characters from the Force Awakens. I think that's very, very smart. Star Wars is a very hot property now with the movies coming out. We have spin-off movies. There's going to be a Han Solo movie soon. And it really makes sense for them to really go after, chase that with the video games. So looking forward to Battlefront 2 being a better overall time.
I saw a new hero there. They revealed that Darth Maul would be in there as well. So in addition to what was shown off in Battlefield 1 with Luke and Vader and Palpatine. Now you can play as Yoda and Darth Maul too. Those are the characters I think that we know of so far. So really cool stuff. All right, that's enough about EA. Let's move on to the Xbox press conference by Microsoft, which will happen on Sunday, June 11th, starting at 5 p.m. Eastern. Here are the games that we're expecting. Some, and also we should mention some hardware as well. They have a lot to talk about with the Scorpio, which was teased last year at E3. Not many details, but a bit more we're expecting. Maybe a price point, hardware specs. I've seen some photos of the prototype units that are out there. What's more to say about this?
Well, I'm curious if they're going to actually go with the Scorpio for the name of this console. I can't believe do you really think it's going to be like Xbox 4K or Xbox One Plus, or, what could you name this new console that also like simply says this is the next generation of the Xbox One, the Pro version that you want. At the same time, you're going to be able to play older Xbox One games, but also this is the hardware we're moving with going forward. They've already kind of said that they want to kind of model this off of the iPhone, where they come out with a new iterative hardware year after year, and it's just, a slight upgrade, and it just gets slightly better and better every year. And, the other question I have is that it's really about the games, right? Are there any Xbox exclusives that they're going to show off this E3 that are going to make people want to buy a Scorpio?
Yeah, that is the big problem, I think. I'm an Xbox One owner. Ryan, you traded yours in a while ago. I want to say 2 years at this point. And I have to agree with you that the exclusives just aren't there. I mean, I could name probably up to 5 of exclusive games that I can only play on the Xbox One. But when I say that, now you're seeing a lot of games that are being released cross-platform with the Windows Store. I'll give you a good example with Forza Horizon. What was it, 3?
Right, Forza Horizon 3.
Yeah.
That was an excellent use of the PC Xbox One. And because they released it on the PC, on Windows 10, I did not have to buy an Xbox One to play that game. And
right, so there's no incentive to keep your Xbox One for now, but they have to make a great case of why you should upgrade to the Scorpio. Is it going to be a better platform, better hardware to support maybe backwards compatible games? They've done a great job about looking at their back catalog. I know there's unfortunately some data that players aren't really using the backwards compatible features, playing those older Xbox Live Arcade or 360 games, unfortunately. So, is that going to be a focus for them? Are you going to be able to play 360 discs on it? Are you going to be able to play Xbox One discs on it? We don't know too much about it. But as far as the branding, like you mentioned, if you want to do something iterative that matches something along the lines of like MacBooks or iPhones or Galaxy, whatever, in this case, maybe they go back to Xbox, right? That is their brand. They call it the Xbox. I've heard some other analysts predict that they might do that, where this is not the original Xbox One as we call it, but they literally say the name of the hardware is, you have to say the and the word Xbox. So you are playing the Xbox.
Xbox fidget spinner. Boom, done. All right.
There you go. Nailed it.
So let's go with games that might actually show off some of this hardware. I think the big flagship one, since we know they're still working on probably another Halo sequel, I cannot imagine that a new Halo game will be announced, or another Gears of War. Gears of War 4, I also think did not set the world on fire. Crackdown 3, I think, is going to be their big flagship game for Scorpio. It's going to show off, when that game was originally shown off, I think 2 E3s ago, they said it was going to be all the multiplayer stuff, all the destructible environments was going to be offloaded to the cloud. And if Scorpio's hardware can take advantage of that, I could see that being really cool. But I'm not sure that Crackdown has enough pull. Crackdown is a really cool game, but I'm not sure that it has a really enough pull still. Unless this game happens to be like Red Faction, where it's just the environment is completely destructible and like that geomod tech has really just been taken and evolved.
Yeah, Crackdown 3 is one of these games that's missing in action. Despite them announcing it a couple of years ago, you have to imagine that it was in development even before then. That might have been pre-alpha footage or whatever, but yeah, it doesn't sound like it's doing well. I'm hoping that they revive it and confirm maybe a release date, maybe next year. Yeah, they need more exclusives, and that's among them for sure. What else can we expect? Maybe some more Sea of Thieves. This is sort of a pirate adventure game that they announced last year. Rather interesting, where you're cooperating with fellow pirates on a ship running it. That could be a potentially fun multiplayer casual experience. Perhaps Shadow of the Tomb Raider, which would be the next Tomb Raider game after Rise of the Tomb Raider.
Right. And it seems like Microsoft, if they're not going to be doing a lot of first-party stuff, they are going to be playing up a lot of their third-party partners. They're going to try to say, oh, this is best on Xbox, world-exclusive content only on Xbox first. Sony has been really taking them to task as far as securing a lot of the Call of Duty exclusives, the Battlefield exclusives. A lot of the third parties have really gone over to Sony this generation. And Microsoft, if they still want to be in this space, really needs to get back some of that attention. I think Tomb Raider is a good start to that. Square Enix has kind of a mixed track record. They've been somewhat supportive of the Tomb Raider franchise of late, this reboot. I'm curious to see what Shadow of the Tomb Raider looks like. Definitely the last one, I think, was very graphically impressive. I don't know how much more they're going to get into the more Uncharted style gameplay versus the puzzle solving stuff of the Tombs, but a neat sequel that I'd definitely like to see.
If you can recall that awkward situation where Rise of the Tomb Raider was at first released as an Xbox One exclusive, and then after some pressure from a lot of outlets, a lot of the press, they revealed that it was actually indeed a timed exclusive and that it was later going to come out on PS4 and PC. So that was a bit of an awkward situation. So a lot of players said, well, I'm just going to wait it out because it might even look better on other platforms. So a bit awkward. I don't know in this case if this is going to be another exclusive. I doubt it, because when it comes to a partnership between Microsoft and Square Enix, there's a lot of money and a lot of money that Xbox and Microsoft would have to pay out to Square Enix as the publisher to say, hey, you're only bring it to us for now and then release it on other platforms later. That's awkward, and I doubt that would happen again. But nonetheless, we're expecting to see more news on that. And how about this? Some Sunset Overdrive 2. And speaking of exclusives from earlier, that was a game that I genuinely thought that was actually the first one that I played, the first title that I actually played when I first purchased mine several years ago. So, yeah, I would like to see a sequel to that. How about you, Ryan?
Yeah, definitely. This was kind of like a AAA open world game that had a vibe that I would describe as kind of like Jet Set Radio-esque. Comic book art style, very over the top, a sense of humor and whimsy about it, some fun boss battles. That game was really, really cool. I think definitely, for me, a really cool exclusive on Xbox One. Are they going to make that solely available on the consoles like they did last time, or are they going to make this a part of their Play Anywhere stuff where they also make it available on the PC? I could see Sunset Overdrive 2 being another poster child, just like Forza Horizon was for that program. And are they going to promote that program more? Are they going to have more partnerships? Are they going to get into, there's been some scuttlebutt about some VR headset partnerships with the Scorpio. Are they going to get more into VR, more Elite Dangerous, more of those kinds of games? It's really hard to say what we really expect from Microsoft. Again, let's just circle back one last time to the Scorpio stuff. What do you think is the magic price point that would get you to buy a Scorpio?
Well, I think certainly it either has to match or be lower than the PS4 Pro. They might tout it as a more powerful machine, but why would you want to convince gamers to pay more for something that doesn't already have like a really great large library of games? And that's the key here. Whenever we talk about the kings of console generations, it's always the platform that has the best exclusive titles that seems to win out. That translates directly to the leader in the hardware sales race. So if you're talking about the Scorpio, what is the PS4 Pro priced at right now? Is that $400 right now?
I think, let me check that. I believe that's the MSRP.
Yeah, well, regardless, it has to match that. If it's any more than that, if they're looking at, if they're selling it for $500 or $600 minimum, that's a hard case to make. You have to come out early. They have a lot of ground to catch up to when it comes to Sony and Nintendo Switch owners, because the Nintendo Switch is kind of in its own category. That's very popular right now, and a lot of great games are getting announced so far. But that's a different space. You're playing that, and you're buying the Switch for Nintendo first-party titles. It's not going to be as technically powerful output like the 4K in the PS4 Pro or the Scorpio reportedly will be in. So It's really a battle between Sony and Microsoft at this point, and I would say you have to go $400 or cheaper in order to convince people to buy it perhaps this holiday season. That would be a surprise to me that we're going to see a Scorpio this early, but that would make a lot of sense.
By the way, quick fact check on you. It is $400, the PS4 Pro. The question I think for me is, Sony didn't roll out the PS4 Pro all that smoothly. They weren't very clear about the improvements other than a bigger hard drive. They said everything was going to be PS4 Pro enhanced. And there was some stuff about, it's true HDR versus 4K. And I think there are a lot of people who are still, that visual fidelity thing is very confusing. And for Sony itself, Prey, for example, came out recently and the retail box said PS4 Pro enhanced. And then it wasn't actually PS4 Pro enhanced until 2 weeks later when the patch rolled. So there's still a little bit of unclear. Hopefully Microsoft, if they're going to shoot for this new hardware, are going to be a lot clearer with their messaging on this. They've been saying that it's going to be a slightly more powerful than the PS4 Pro hardware-wise, but then for what? If we're to believe some of the Eurogamer reporting on this, if the Scorpio is slightly more powerful than the PS4 Pro, then I could easily see this being $500, but then are gamers willing to pay that? Without a really cool game to show that powerful hardware off, I don't see myself buying one right now.
Well, and you have to make a strong case for purchasing this thing if you're going to continue with this Play Anywhere program where games are coming out on the PC as well. Because if you already have a powerful gaming rig, why are you going to buy the Scorpio? You have to make that case. You have to make that clear messaging. Is there an advantage to buying this box which will support 4K natively? But then again, you have to assume that the consumer already has a 4K ready TV, which a lot of people don't still. I certainly don't, and that's one of the reasons why I don't have a PS4 Pro, because I would get barely any improvements out of it. It's not worth the cost of admission so far. So enough about the Scorpio.
Let's move on to a PC first developer. I would say Bethesda is going to be our next conference. Bethesda probably going to go strong and hard with Quake Champions, their esports focused take on Quake, multiplayer hero shooter for all intents and purposes, playing off of that very storied, genre defining, game of Quake. There's a multiplayer beta that's going to be happening. Hopefully they'll show some gameplay of that. I can't imagine one of the Quake characters having a super or anything like that, but I guess that's going to happen, isn't it?
Yeah, it's a hero shooter. Apparently, you're going to have a unique abilities per hero, but I think it's going to do very, very well. That's my prediction for it. I saw a lot of people lining up to play that at PAX East earlier this year. And just as a reminder for Bethesda's press conference, that's also on Sunday, June 11th. This one, though, get this, for Eastern time, it's at 12 a.m., so just pointing that out. It's at 9 p.m. Pacific, though, so just be aware. Yeah, and those Quake Champions players that you were talking about that are currently in the multiplayer beta, they're currently NDA'd, so they can't speak out about it, but it is a very interesting premise, and very much excited to see more about that, so we're expecting that from the Bethesda press conference. How about some more Fallout 4 and Doom VR news?
They're probably going to show some of that off. I'm going to be honest. I think for me, that would be a snooze fest because, first of all, I don't own a VR headset, and I think I would speak for a lot of the gaming population. VR has proven to be way too expensive for a lot of people, and there's just not enough unique VR stuff there. I think the coolest thing I've done in VR is keep talking and nobody explodes. And then everything else has been kind of like shrug my shoulders. Resident Evil 7 is probably a good test case for PSVR. But beyond that, a lot of VR games are, gun galleries and shooting galleries, and Fallout 4 is you get a gun in that game. Doom, you get a gun in that game. That could be really cool. I would love to see hell modeled in VR, but at the same time, I've played both of those games. I think I'm good.
I think you're really discrediting the success of the PSVR. If you recall, Sony has been boasting about their sales in general, not just on the PS4, but they sold nearly 1 million units within the first 4 months that it came out. So that's really impressive. They sold, I think, in the first quarter of this year, somewhere around more than 300,000. So it's definitely picking up. And I think you were speaking specifically about perhaps the Rift and the Vive. Those are still cost prohibitive in my opinion. But you can't discount the PSVR. I think Fallout 4 and Doom would go a long way in convincing people that they should play these games. And let me also remind people, and we haven't talked about this on the podcast, but a recent game called Farpoint released on PSVR, and that is very popular right now. That bundle with the new gun aim controller, where you put the actual wands into this gun controller that you point around, is sold out everywhere. It's being resold on eBay for $100, $150 when it's supposed to retail bundled with the game for, I believe, about $70 or $80. So, yeah, you can't find this thing anywhere. And I think with the applications for Fallout 4 and Doom would be excellent for that platform specifically.
Wait, but time out. Bringing this back to Bethesda a little bit, Fallout 4 launched pretty buggy. A lot of Bethesda games launch, particularly open worlds Bethesda games, launch pretty buggy. How much would you pay for a very buggy, potentially nausea-inducing experience in Fallout 4's world?
Well, I think they would be smart to release it as perhaps DLC. To answer your question, I mean, I don't think they're going to release like a full VR support, like a Fallout 4 version where you're playing in first person mode. That would be really dumb if they priced that out at like $50, $60. That would be silly. If they put it out for, let's say, $20 or $25, and maybe it's a shorter experience, or maybe it's the first person mode of the main game, I think I'd be okay with that. Seriously, in all honesty. Doom was a rare case where I think it was relatively bug-free at launch. I can't speak to the multiplayer, but the single player was absolutely spectacular. We've talked a bunch about that on our show. Imagine that in VR. That would be really, really something.
And I think that game was well optimized at all graphic settings, and that game was just really well done from an artwork perspective. The soundtrack, the whole package, I think, for Doom was really solid, except, as you mentioned, the multiplayer. All right, let's move on to some of the other stuff that we expect Bethesda to be announcing. Evil Within 2, speaking of games that were not well optimized at launch, Evil Within was this kind of like horror-themed, third-person, behind-the-back shooter. I wonder where they take the Evil Within from here in a sequel.
I originally played Evil Within on the PS4. It performed very poorly. The frame rate constantly stuttered. The loading times were incredibly long, but I really loved the style of that game and just the absolute horror and tone. It was really, really fascinating. It was cool. It took the gameplay mechanics of something like Resident Evil 4 and gave it more of a dreadful look like Silent Hill had, but it was gory. It had a bit of Saw influence in there as well. I would be excited to see like a sequel to that game, but man, that game was just not optimized for the PS4. I have to speak specifically to that. Can't speak to the other versions of it, but man, that was disappointing. I'd like to see them do a redo.
All right. Well, speaking of good Bethesda games, let's talk about a sequel that got leaked on Amazon Germany, Wolfenstein 2, The New Colossus. All right, cool. A sequel to the reboot of Wolfenstein, a game I really enjoyed. They had the Old Blood expansion that was a standalone expansion, also very, very cool. I really liked the direction of that new Wolfenstein game, and I thought that was really smart. After, games of that era like Duke Nukem being rebooted into Duke Nukem Forever, a new Wolfenstein was actually like a breath of fresh air, had really cool aesthetic, the right amount of sci-fi, right amount of like historical first-person shooter stuff. A cool game.
Don't you think it's a bit ironic that Wolfenstein was leaked on Amazon Germany?
Yeah, you're right. That's very on the nose there. But the original Wolfenstein had the last villain, spoilers if you haven't played the original Wolfenstein, which that game is really old. But anyway, the last boss of that game was a mecha Hitler. And Hitler, strangely, for all the Nazi imagery and suggestion in the reboot of the Wolfenstein game, he didn't appear. Do you think they're going to finally put mecha Hitler back in a game in 2017?
Probably not. There would probably be a lot of backlash about that, especially given the political climate in Europe and especially here in the US. I sincerely doubt that that would cause a lot of internet drama that I don't think they want. So, Can it still have Nazis? Of course. Can you depict Hitler again? Probably not. I think that's a line that nobody wants to cross. Certainly Bethesda is known for sort of towing that line about what they can drive forward with Fallout series and Doom, but I don't think so. I doubt Mecha Hitler will return. But certainly I would rename the game, if that were true, Wolfenstein 2: The New Colossus as Wolfenstein 2: Mecha Hitler Returns Strikes Back.
Well, that's the new Colossus. That was the Mecha Hitler all along. They're just gonna give BJ Blazkowicz a Hitler mustache, and then they'll be done with it.
Mecha Hitler was in your hearts and minds all along.
Right. Speaking of unauthorized mods, let's talk about Skyrim on the Nintendo Switch. I sincerely doubt that they're going to do like a Steam Workshop level of support for that game on Nintendo Switch. But my question about that is, first off, would you play that game on Switch? And second of all, do you think that game will perform well when Skyrim, a very popular game, came out a few years ago, and basically everybody, I think, has taken all of the content that they want from that?
I agree with you. I don't know that I would play it. First of all, I'm not a Switch owner, so clearly I wouldn't play it. But if I were, I wouldn't buy this game again. I have played through the original game and its DLC, and that's that. I have no desire to play that again. Are you getting extra value of it because it's a portable version of this game? Probably not. This is the kind of game that I think you have to sit down and in front of your TV on the couch. It's best played through as that, or your PC, whatever. But I don't see any additional value here. I think at the minimum it has to be the remastered version that they put out. What was it, earlier this year or last year? Regardless, I don't think so. But I think it will still sell extremely well for those folks who hadn't bought it on PC before, obviously, and it's too old of a game at this point.
I think if it's Skyrim, or when it originally came out, had come out on a console like the Switch, I think it would have done very well on that console. But now I think we're at a point where I would like to see the next Elder Scrolls game on Switch, and that would probably be my ideal way of playing that game, because then I could take it anywhere. I was hopelessly addicted to Oblivion and Skyrim when it came out, and I could see that the portable factor of that being a huge deal for an open world game like that.
Yeah, and we should also mention we're expecting some more news, which was announced recently, about the Elder Scrolls Online Morrowind expansion, which is a very, very large content update to the popular MMO. If you recall, the Elder Scrolls ESO, Elder Scrolls Online, launched very, very awkwardly, and they've since done a lot of great work about making it a free-to-play game. And I got to try it out myself recently, but I think for old Elder Scrolls fans, returning to Morrowind would be a huge nostalgia factor. I think it's still going to sell very well, but I think they're going to show off a lot more footage during Bethesda's press conference. What do you think, Ryan?
Is there going to be another enthusiastic person that yells inappropriately in the middle of an ESO presentation? I cannot wait. All right, let's move on to PC Gaming Show, which is a relative newcomer. It's been only the past few E3s that they've done the PC gaming focused PC Gaming Show. A game called BattleTech, which basically a reboot of an older game called BattleTech. Remember when there were all those like arcadey mech style shooters, Mech Warrior, that kind of thing? This seems to be a play at that. They're gonna combine. This game is going to be an XCOM style tactical RPG with some light shooting mechanics. I think that's a really cool concept for a game. I really want to see what the gameplay is like, because XCOM 2 I don't think really set the world on fire. Yeah,
I don't know too much about BattleTech, so I'm just going to move on to what else we're expecting at the PC Gaming Show, which is Lawbreakers, something that's gained a lot of attention, shown off a little bit at PAX East that I attended. I didn't get a chance to play it, but apparently there's a recent announcement that this game is going to be, is it $30? I want to say it's $30 with some free content. So it's going to be budget price, but it's a hero shooter. I think it's going to compete in the same space as Overwatch. But the difference between this game and that would be that it's sort of, they're marketing it as gravity defying. So there's a lot of like sort of grappling hook style mechanics, moving around in space. It looks kind of cool so far, but I hope that they show off more stuff here.
There was a beta that came out for that game a little bit ago, and it seemed to be a little bit more Twitch-based than a game like Overwatch, a little bit more in the style of Doom or Quake than I would say of like Team Fortress. Definitely still team-based, definitely still, class-based, but at the same time, very focused on like CTF or Team Deathmatch, or more so than like the strict objective style stuff of Overwatch. All right, speaking of other online shooters, Argo from Bohemia Interactive seems to be taking the very recently popular tact from PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds and making a team-based shooter coming out this June, so very soon. I don't know when exactly this month it's coming out, but
is it a team-based shooter? Because PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds, it's more of, well, I guess you can cooperate with your squad mates, but that's more like a Hunger Games style game. Can you explain what Argo is supposed to be?
Yeah, Argo seems to be going after a little bit more of the like Arma style of 5v5, small team-based shooters in these big open environments, like more army and military themed than PlayerUnknown's Battlegrounds, which is kind of just like, hey, or whatever, you're going to drop out of a plane and here's a gun and go for it.
Yeah, modern day, more DayZ, H1Z1 kind of style to it.
Right. So besides some probably overpriced video card that they're going to advertise on this PC gaming show, what else do you expect to see? Do you expect to see like some new Windows games on the Xbox Play Anywhere program? Do you maybe see like the next Halo game showing up at this PC gaming show? Because, if they finally put Halo on PC, I imagine it would be like a graphical powerhouse.
I doubt there's going to be Halo shown off at that one. If anything, Microsoft would want to show that off first at the Xbox one. So yeah, and that of course precedes the PC gaming show, which is being held on Monday, June the 12th at 1 p.m. Eastern. So I really doubt that they would premiere it there. It's hard to say. I don't think that they would promote a lot of the Xbox Play Anywhere games, because you're not premiering anything there. You're just rehashing what Xbox has perhaps already announced. So it's hard to say. The gaming show, I think it excels when it shows off, like you said, new hardware. So whether that's new cases, maybe new VR hardware, maybe some new VR games, that would be, I think, a huge plus there. Maybe if they had Oculus on stage, or they had HTC reps on there showing off some exclusive titles, I think that would go a long way to convince people. And speaking of the other, what's that VR headset, that HoloLens that Microsoft is currently developing? Maybe they show off more gameplay titles there. That would be, I think, a slam dunk. That would get a lot of attention if they introduce those at the PC gaming show. I don't know.
All right. Well, speaking of a lot of attention, Ubisoft, always right there at the launch of a console. Ubisoft this year coming in hard with Assassin's Creed Origins, leaked all over the place. This is an Assassin's Creed game that is taking place in Egypt, which I think for me is a very interesting setting, particularly after the last game, Syndicate, was set in old-timey London. I thought that was a very cool setting. I kind of have a mixed feeling on the Assassin's Creed franchise. Some of the games I really like, some of them really turn me off. Assassin's Creed has kind of taken a break. They've stopped doing the sci-fi Desmond stuff and kind of gone more into the like ahistorical simulation style. And I'm wondering what this game will be like if it takes place in Egypt.
Yeah, Origins has been leaking all over the place, so it just makes sense. I think the first like official sort of art that we've seen about it has been leaked from actually a Target employee, believe it or not, showing off a pre-order card for, I think it's a season pass content. But yeah, as a reminder, Ubisoft showing off their stuff on Monday, June 12th, and they're beginning at 4 p.m. Eastern. So check their stuff out there. Besides Assassin's Creed, which is their bread and butter, let's talk about The Crew 2.
Right. So the original Crew was an open world racing game that I think was a cult classic.
No, it wasn't. Come on. No, your definition of cult classic is super broad, Ryan, and no, it wasn't.
So I never played The Crew. It did kind of interest me. I would say that The Crew was kind of going after that like Cruisin' USA style of racing fan who was looking for something a little bit more arcadey, a little bit more open-ended, something that wasn't Need for Speed, basically. And The Crew basically went free to play a little bit ago. After a not so successful launch, there were some problems with the online portions of that game. It kind of did this interesting thing where you could drive from end to end point of America and like explore different cities and do races and kind of just really explore. But I don't think not enough there. I'm curious what they're going to do with a sequel to that game. Are they going to make it as big? Are they going to take it to a different country? Are they going to make the driving actually a little bit better? Is it going to be, a more technically sound experience? Is it going to be free to play? Who knows? If with Ubisoft, they've been really doing this like games of service thing after the release of Rainbow Six Siege, where they released the original title and then they continue to support it with DLC. And then surprisingly, the community keeps coming back and back and back. And I think that model for them has worked out really, really well. So we'll see with The Crew 2 where they take that from there. Of course, another game that they announced recently, Far Cry 5, the next Far Cry game. Definitely going to be shown off at this E3. They showed off the kind of cover image. Very interesting. Looks like American militia style villain here. He's like a cult leader.
Yeah, the official art, it has direct. It looks like The Last Supper, but I think it's politically sensitive because it's supposed to be this right-wing militia, I believe, taking place in, is it Montana? Is that right?
Right, Montana. And like, the last two Far Cry games, Far Cry 3 and Far Cry 4, basically took place on these like island paradises. The last game in Tibet, the other one in some
Tibet's
kind of...
not an island paradise, Ryan, but yes, 3 was.
Yeah, excuse me, tropical paradise. Tibet was more mountains and more... it was less like drug trips and more like spiritual Nirvana style experiences. But Far Cry 5, I imagine... we're going to stop shooting ethnic people. We're going to start shooting white people.
Oh, gosh. Yeah, well, this is a Far Cry game that is interesting because it's taking place here in the U.S. So you're already there's already many controversies online about, oh, this is about shooting right-wing nut jobs and, or we're going to kill each other. But like, it's an interesting conversation here. I'm very much looking forward to playing this game because a lot of the sort of teaser trailers that they're putting out there describe personal experiences about people living in the small town, about like being sort of disillusioned and angry about this cult that's sort of taking over and converting sinners and things like that. But I think it attacks the very heart of American politics right now in a very politically sensitive time. Despite it being controversial, very much looking forward to trying it, especially given the Far Cry formula of open world sort of exploration. I think this is going to be a very story-rich game, and hopefully they take some more cues from the lessons learned from Far Cry 4 and Primal, make it less of a collect fest, but do more of a focus on the story. I think that would do a lot towards that game. But very interesting marketing so far. Check it out for yourself if you haven't seen it.
And finally, the most politically sensitive of games, Mario and Rabbids Kingdom Battle. Taylor, I did not think that this crossover was ever going to happen in my lifetime. I've been dreaming about this. I've been wanting it for so long.
Dreaming or having nightmares about this. I mean, it's so weird, very bizarre crossover. There have been images leaked ahead of E3 of
they gave the Mario characters guns. Why would you do that?
Yeah, why? I don't know. You know what? I'm hopeful that this is a very, very good RPG, but why are you going to have Rabbids as the crossover with Mario characters? There's so many other better third-party characters to do this with. It's very awkward. I don't know. We don't know anything about it besides the very bizarre art that they showed. Yeah, I saw Peach with like a Mega Man style gun. Yoshi had like a bazooka. Bizarre, very bizarre. And then the Rabbids are dressed up as the Mario characters, where one's wearing a Mario hat, one's dressed up as Peach, one's in a Yoshi suit. It's super, super weird. So I think we're going to hear more about that at E3. But yeah, I don't know what to make of it.
But I will say, in all sincerity, I'm not a Rabbids fanboy. Those games, Rabbids, in fairness to the Rabbids, they were trying to go for the Minions thing before Minions were a thing, and I think the Rabbids were very wacky and could have been suited to become the next popular kids cartoon thing. But unfortunately, just a circumstance of timing. And I think the best that I can hope for with this kind of game is that it takes the kind of Mario and Luigi style of humor and writing and very smart, like meta fourth level wall breaking stuff that the regular Mario games just don't go there. And the Mario and Luigi games have been great with their humor and very funny and very smart. And the gameplay is actually pretty good. So the best that I can hope for is that Ubisoft takes that kind of direction, takes the humor of the Rabbids and applies it to something like that other portable popular franchise has been. I just hope it's not too, if I want to describe it like the Ubisoft like verve of humor where it's just like over the top, or the Rabbids are just like screaming the whole time at Mario characters. If that's the case, like no sale.
Yeah. It's weird because the rumors are swirling that this is supposed to be an RPG. What style of RPG? Not sure, but if this ends up being like a Plants vs Zombies team shooter, like that's awkward. I'm not interested in Mario and that. I don't know. And is this going to be a Switch game or is this going to be a 3DS game? Still unclear again at this point. Yeah, I don't know. Throw in a dash of Super Mario RPG along with those Mario and Luigi's. If it's indeed it's supposed to be an RPG, that would be funny. That would be cool. I would be open to having Rabbids. And also, let me just point out, I think this is the most in-depth analysis anyone has ever given to the Ubisoft Rabbids characters. Before, those games have just been awkward mini game collections, Mario Party style. So yeah, now that they're teaming up with Mario, though, now they're hitting the big times, right?
Finally, the Rabbids have their day in the sun. All right, let's move on to the PlayStation conference. That's happening Monday, June 12th, 9 o'clock Eastern. Taylor, what do you think Sony is going to launch with?
Well, if you remember from last year, God of War, this is a reboot where it's more Norse mythology instead of the Greek stuff. So I imagine that they're going to announce an official release date for that, maybe some more gameplay footage. That would be great. But also expect some news about that new Spider-Man game being developed by Insomniac, because Sony has definitely been teasing that as a PlayStation exclusive title, right?
Right. And Insomniac, the developers, of course, of Infamous, that open world superhero action game. I could be really pumped up about the Spider-Man game. It's been a long time since we've had a good one of those. I would probably say the last good one was tied to the movie Spider-Man 2. Really cool web swinging and open worlds in New York. I'm not sure if this is going to be timed with the release of that new Spider-Man movie. This has nothing to do with it, but a cool game that takes advantage of Spider-Man's superpowers and New York City, and being made by folks who have made open world style games before, could definitely be a recipe for success, I think. All right, well, speaking of new stuff, let's talk about Gran Turismo Sport, their simulation racer that is basically Gran Turismo 7, that they're not saying it's Gran Turismo 7. Probably going to be a graphical powerhouse for the PS4 and the PS4 Pro. Going to show off some, cars, and cars driving in rain are always good tests for console graphics. And I really like the Gran Turismo series, particularly when they do the kind of like car PG stuff where you can kind of do some vehicle customization and also level up and advance to like new classes of cars. I'm not sure that the audience is still there for Gran Turismo because they took so long to develop Gran Turismo 5, and then Gran Turismo 6 kind of came out and nobody played it. But yeah, it could be really cool if they do it right.
There's still demand, a hunger for simulation style games. You look at Forza, popularity of Forza. Gran Turismo is still the king. I think it would still sell extremely well. Historically, does some very, very good stuff for Sony, not just here in the US, but worldwide. Definitely. Let's move on to Uncharted: The Lost Legacy. This story, though, is a bit different because this is taking a side story. It's not going to star Nathan Drake as we know him today as an adult, but let's talk about what this game looks like. It was teased very, very briefly within the past year.
Right, so it stars the two female characters from that game, Nadine Ross, who was the bad guy in Uncharted 4, and Chloe from Uncharted 3, who was Nathan's kind of like romantic love interest. You're going to be playing as them. It's going to tell a little bit of a side story. Looks really cool. I'm curious how long this game is going to be. I think they've kind of suggested that it's going to be kind of a smaller package. It's not going to be a full game, maybe like a $20 smaller experience, maybe like 10 hours as opposed to like the 20 hours or so Uncharted typically is. but really, really cool. Will Naughty Dog take this direction? Will, a lot of their famous writers, Amy Hennig, have kind of left the studio, and will this game have really smart writing and a really good take on the kind of like Indiana Jones style swashbuckling adventure? I hope so. I hope they get away a little bit from some of that like traversal stuff where there's like white chalk and everything to really tell where you're supposed to climb up the wall. I hope that the gunplay is a little bit better.
Yeah, not much more to say about that, but let's talk about some of the. Let's run through a little bit of these because I don't want to go too long. We're expecting a lot. Sony does like to show off typically a lot of games all at once, whether it's gameplay footage or just cinematic teaser trailers. But some of the other ones that we're expecting: The Last of Us 2, Days Gone. And this one that's already been announced, Crash Bandicoot Insane Trilogy, just a remaster of the original 3. How about some Kingdom Hearts 3? That game has been MIA for a while, just like Crackdown 3 was for Xbox. I think that would be a huge surprise, but I mean, come on, can it come out at least?
I think I'm gonna have children before Kingdom Hearts 3 comes out. I've been waiting so long for the sequel to Kingdom Hearts 2, and instead I get all these like iterative Kingdom Hearts games that I cannot follow the thread on. Ni no Kuni 2. Now there's a sequel I definitely want to see. This was hinted at last E3. I am so interested in this game because the original one I think was a surprise, a nice fun surprise. Pokemon style RPG. Where you collected monsters. This one going to be a little less focused on that, but really cool art. I love that art style, and I hope this game is really, really fun. I would also expect to see the Call of Duty World War II reveal to happen here. We already know that game exists, but I'd like to see some more gameplay footage. They're probably going to announce here at the Sony thing that the multiplayer DLC is going to be first on PS4 because that's, of course, the platform where all of your friends are playing. And
didn't they do the same with Advanced Warfare? I want to say they had it first available.
Right, Advanced Warfare and Infinite Warfare, I think both came there. That DLC both came out first on PS4. But I want to see what this World War II game is about. Is it going to be more of the fast-paced, hero-focused thing that the recent Call of Duty games have, or are they really, really taking the hint from Battlefield 1 and going back to that old model of Call of Duty games where it's, the weapons really have weight to them. There's like bullet drop and all that other fun stuff. So, looking forward to seeing the Sony press conference. I want to see some good games. I want to see some stuff, some VR stuff. I want to see stuff taking advantage of PS4 Pro. I want to see where they take Sony from here.
Yeah, and the last press conference, major one, that's happening, scheduled for Tuesday, June 13th at 12 p.m. Eastern. That's noon on Tuesday. Nintendo, what's interesting about them is that they already had a Pokemon Direct this past week, but I don't know. It's very, very weird. I don't know if they're going to be announcing anything new. It's hard to say here. I think they revealed a lot when the Switch was originally announced, but difficult to predict what they will show off here at their press conference. Here's some games that we already know about: Super Mario Odyssey, ARMS.
Super Mario Odyssey, just to take a minute on that, I think is going to be the flagship thing that they show this year at E3. I've seen some pictures of the E3 show floor where they're basically doing a lot of the New Donk City stuff in that game. And that's expected to come out sometime this holiday. I think that is the game that we're all waiting for on the Switch after completing Breath of the Wild. I think that game will definitely be a system seller, and I'm eager to see what the gameplay will be like. Is there an open hub world in that game? Is that what New Donk City is? Is it going to be more like Mario Galaxy, where there's more of an overworld? I am very interested in that game. ARMS, they're probably going to show off some ARMS stuff. ARMS comes out very soon here, probably I think it's the Friday after E3. And there was that global test punch. I think ARMS is surprisingly very, very popular already, based on that successful multiplayer test. Will that game be this year's Splatoon? Will that game take off and be a front runner, a new idea, the spiritual successor to Punch-Out that I think a lot of people are really, really craving?
Yeah, ARMS, you're right. ARMS is coming out June 16th. That's right.
Right. Splatoon 2, that game is coming out this summer also. Splatoon 2 taking a bit more of the esports angle. Nintendo did the chat setup thing with Splatoon 2 that I cannot believe still exists. I know we didn't talk about it on the show.
Can we talk about that a little bit? We need to talk about that.
That in 2017, why is such a complicated thing for voice chat happening?
Well, explain what it is. The voice chat. Let me take it from here. This voice chat is awkward. There's this headset that is appearing on one ear with a microphone. That is it 1 or 2 ears? It is a wraparound. I can't remember.
It's a wraparound headphones with a mic that you're gonna be able to plug into this squid-like headphone splitter. And the reason that you'll need this squid headphone splitter is because you need to use the voice chat on the Switch, because there isn't a built-in mic. You have to plug it into one cable of the splitter goes into your phone that will have the voice chat app on it. The other part will go into the headphones, and then the yet another cable will go into the Switch so that you can mix in game audio.
Right.
Why? I know we don't do a video podcast, but I'm doing like a facepalm for this.
Yeah. So I can attest to that. He's facepalming. I think this is so stupid of Nintendo. Why is there no integrated, supported game and voice chat option with the Switch? I mean, seriously, why can't you just plug in your existing headset, your speakers, whether it's a USB or an 1/8-inch audio jack, into the Switch and have it be supported? You have an inline microphone with existing earbuds. That just to me would make the most sense. They could even sell their own if they wanted to. But
and the other element of this is that phones now don't really have. If you have an iPhone, you don't have a headphone jack.
Yeah, you have to have a separate dongle, right, to that lightning bolt connector that supports that 1/8-inch jack. Exactly. That's another thing that you have to buy. It's so awkward. There are all these other free solutions out there, Skype or Discord or Google Hangouts, whatever. Just call somebody. Call somebody on the phone, and if you want to chat with them, have a conference call. You can do that. Why would you spend the money on this stupid headset solution is bonkers to me. But I think they're going to show this hardware off, and they're like, this is why you should buy it. And all of us are going to point and laugh and say, no, nobody's going to buy this thing.
The other aspect of this is that I don't want to talk to anybody online when I'm playing definitely shooters in the first place. And I don't think Splatoon is the kind of deep strategy first-person shooter, team-based first-person shooter that requires voice chat. It's not Overwatch. It's not like the strict objective-based thing. You're shooting paint on the ground and trying to cover as much area with your paint as possible. You don't need this. Don't buy it.
I totally agree. You can totally enjoy Splatoon 1, certainly. You could definitely enjoy without voice chat. So, very awkward. Let's move on. More some Switch games.
So, they're probably going to show off some more of that Pokemon Tournament DX. This is the remastered version of the Wii U game. Let's see what kind of Pokemon they add from Sun and Moon in that. Xenoblade Chronicles 2, they're going to be adding, when the Switch was announced, they said that this game was coming. Hopefully we'll see some more gameplay footage of that. This is, of course, the open world RPG game, a little bit more MMO style, ability cooldowns and that kind of thing. We've heard some scuttlebutt about a Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga remake. That game, of course, was the spiritual successor, really, to the Super Mario RPG Legacy with the rhythm-based combat. Very, very funny writing. Launched basically that whole portable franchise. A very, very funny game. Wonder what they're going to do for this version of the game. Is it going to be on Switch or is it going to be on 3DS? Sonic Mania, definitely going to be seeing that new Sonic game that comes out this year. The old school Sonic game we've all really, really wanted. I played a little bit of that, the preview event that I went to earlier this year. Reminded me a lot of the old Sonic and Knuckles game, Sonic 2, Sonic 1. And do we see more 3DS games? It seems like Nintendo is not willing to let go of the 3DS. They're announcing a new hardware iteration of the 2DS, the 2DS XL. That's coming out really soon, and they don't seem to be backing off of that platform.
Well, yeah, and at this Pokemon Direct, which we haven't talked about recently, they did announce Ultra Sun and Ultra Moon, which is it's not a remake of Sun and Moon. Obviously, that was released very recently, but it is like a new adventure with some new Pokemon in there. And that is being released on the 3DS before. But beyond that, I don't see really a huge future in it. I doubt that they're going to be putting out a lot more games for it. I think we're seeing the death throes of that hardware. I think they're throwing all their support behind the Switch, of course. But as far as wish list items, I would love to see, give us an F-Zero game. It's been a long time since we've seen that. Give us a new Metroid game. That would be awesome on a Switch. F-Zero, I mean, personally, I'm a huge fan. That it's been since the GameCube that we've seen a mainline F-Zero game. There was a Game Boy Advance game of that. Like, I cannot even recall. It's been so long since we've seen one. So I would love to see that they announce something.
I would personally love to not see them do the Federation Force thing that they do with Metroid, where they do a crappy spin-off. I want to see a proper Metroid game, either a Metroidvania-style 2D platformer, or a Metroid Prime, really, really cool game. Not just a remaster of that trilogy, because that was done on the Wii U and the Wii. So hopefully that will come out. Hopefully they'll throw some more support behind the Switch. I want to see any game that they announce for the 3DS. I want there to be a Switch version, because I am starved for content on that platform. You can read an article I actually wrote about that on the site, 1pversus2p.com. You can read that on our show blog. But I think a lot of people are looking for some more stuff from Nintendo, and hopefully we don't have to wait till Super Mario Odyssey this holiday for a really new game from them.
I'm going to call it right here. I want to say that they're going to do a Smash 4 port over to the Switch. That would be very smart of them to do. Do the one that was released on the Wii U and 3DS, put it on the Switch. It would still sell amazingly well. I predict that they're going to reveal that here. That would be super smart of them if they're not going to do the next mainline Smash game. I don't think they're ready for that.
That would be a Megaton announcement if they did Smash 5.
All right, wrapping it up, as far as other E3 games, some surprise hits that might be revealed in any of these shows, you have a couple here that I know you wanted to cover, and some that have been sort of leaked and rumored to be shown off or playable there. Why don't you cover the last couple that we have?
Right, so Fortnite is definitely going to make an appearance. That game has not been talked about in E3 for a long time. I know that it was shown off at E3 Judges Week. This is going to be like a wave-based horde mode style shooter. We'll see if it can really compete with the likes of games like Overwatch. Middle-earth: Shadow of War, the sequel to the last Middle-earth game, really, really excellent open-world game taking place in the Lord of the Rings universe. I want to see where they go from there. Are they going to take the Nemesis system in a new direction? Is the Batman style combat going to be a little bit more evolved than that? A surprise thing is being revived. Bubsy, the thing you, again, like the Rabbids, you always wanted. Bubsy, the Woolly Strike Back. It is 2017. There is a new Bubsy game. There is a trailer. It's real.
What year is it?
Yeah, what year is it? I'm checking my watch.
Yeah.
Dissidia, Square Enix, is doing an arcade port. Is bringing the arcade version to the PS4 next year. You can already pre-order that. I really like the Dissidia games. Kind of
Final Fantasy fighting game if you've never played those before.
Right. Very like Power Stone, Smash Brothers inspired, I would say. Metal Gear Survive. Konami is going to be at E3. Konami, the sports club and insurance company. They're probably going to be bringing Metal Gear Survive. Don't know what to expect from that game, but hopefully it's not just a retread of Metal Gear, and hopefully they don't crap up the franchise.
No, you know what else they're going to show off? Konami's going to be there to show off their licensed casino and slot machines. Don't forget that. They're in the other gaming business.
Oh,
gaming
boy.
In quotes.
oh boy. Do we see Cuphead? I've been waiting for Cuphead for so long. I really want Cuphead to finally just come out. I don't care if it comes out in early access. That game has a really cool art style, very unique. It sounds like it's going to be very hard. I'm very interested in that game. Will this game finally come out this year? Yep. Destiny 2, there was a reveal trailer about that. I bet Bungie is going to be showing off some footage of Destiny 2. I would like to hear some more stuff about its gameplay and the modes. Are the raids going to be a little bit easier to get into? They've talked about introducing the more Sherpa system, making matchmaking a little bit easier. Strange Brigade, the game that is coming out from the developers of the Sniper Elite series. It seems to have a little bit more of an occult take on that kind of shooter. There's a reveal trail out there on YouTube if you want to check that out. Do we see Rockstar doing on the console stage Red Dead Redemption 2? Rockstar typically skips E3, pretending to prefer their own announcements and letting them take up all the air in the room. I would like to see more Red Dead Redemption 2 news. That game, I can't imagine coming out this year, but I would be really stoked to see some of that coming out. There's yet another Sonic game, Sonic Heroes. Sega hasn't been too forthcoming with too many details on that, but looked for some gameplay and more information on that. Yakuza Kiwami, this is a remake of the original Yakuza game on PS2, done more in the Yakuza 0 style. So look for more of that. Yakuza 6, a proper sequel. They're going to take that story in a new direction. And finally, Agents of Mayhem. This is the Volition-developed Saints Row people who are making a new game in that sort of style of universe, purple characters. This might be taking a little bit of the like Crackdown superpower vibe that the last Saints Row game had and taking it in a new like fun direction. I'm kind of curious to see what kind of gameplay that will be like, if it's just an open world thing again, or if it's, free to play, or if it's some other kind of style of game. But I'm very interested in that game. Taylor, any last minute predictions from this year's E3? Anything you would really, really like to see that we haven't mentioned?
I don't know if I have any other games. This is a pretty all-encompassing list. It's hard to predict anything new. Anything beyond what we talked about would be a pure surprise from our standpoint.
Right. And I think, E3 every year is Video Game Christmas. We expect to see gameplay and stuff we've heard about and some actually like rubber meets the road on a lot of these games. I think for me, there are some games I'm really excited for here. Need for Speed Payback. I'm definitely excited for that God of War reboot, Spider-Man, Ni no Kuni 2, Super Mario Odyssey. For them, it's really a question of, are these platform holders really going to give us more interesting games this year than they have in the past? And I think the last few years, E3 has been full of a bunch of megaton announcements. And I look at this list of games, and there are definitely some big ones, but I don't see a lot of like indie support, or, I see a lot of remasters here. Are they going to put more interesting new IP games this generation? It's hard to sell. Or are we just going to get more of the same sequels and remasters that we always get?
For me, it would have to be, I'm most excited for Star Wars Battlefront 2, even though it's a sequel. It's still very, very exciting. Quake Champions, very excited for that, for sure. What else do we have here? Looking through this list, Super Mario Odyssey would have to be another one I'm very excited for. I think at that point, I would probably buy the Switch just for that. Usually it's a mainline Mario game that convinces me to buy a new console or 3DS or back in the day, Game Boy, all that stuff. So it never disappoints. Let's put it that way.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up. If you liked our show, please subscribe, rate, and review us on Apple Podcasts and Stitcher. We would really greatly appreciate the reviews. They're a huge help to our show.
Absolutely. You can, of course, always listen to us on YouTube, Google Play Music, TuneIn, Clamor, or our site, bookmark 1pvs2p.com. And as always, search for us using your favorite podcast app. A list and links to all the E3 major stories and press conferences will be posted at the link in the show notes.
Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter at 1pvs2p_podcast. As always, we want to thank Phonetic Hero for the use of his songs for our show, Coffee Stomp and Super Manly Brothers X. Both songs are part of the compilation project Chiptunes Equals Win. Of course, we're going to be doing more live streams of upcoming games we enjoyed from our library. I hope to join you, Taylor, on some of these live streams soon. But look forward to more content from us coming soon.
Have a happy E3 2017. Thanks for listening. We'll see you next time.